Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back, Mr. John Riggio, our architect and CEO of John Riggio, RA Architect LLC. We want to remind you that we're excited to have our guest here who's not only an architect, but he's also a world famous tennis player. What is your name in overseas?
Carlos Scipio.
Carlos Ciprio. Yes. Tell us. I mean, you've had quite the amazing life career. We've gotten to know you over the past few years here, and we're excited that you're back today. So give everyone a little breakdown of who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into the area of focus for us today. Thank you.
Yes, I think some of my shows are under my profession, John Riggio Architect. But today I'm going to talk about my professional tennis playing career that started when I was younger. And I think as far as the name goes, yeah, my last playing name was Carlos Scipio, but I'm still maybe bridging the name between my natural name at this point and my player name. We'll see how it works out. And so, yeah, I think as far as the tennis stories go, I have a lot of interesting tennis stories. I've been researching all kinds of sports stories, going on YouTube and reading about other sport players. And I was remembering about the past more, just getting more details, names, and everything like that. And I think just to go through some things, just heading through some of the past a little bit real quick was I was just remembering playing with Vitas Gerulaitis, which is a player who was 14 years older than me, but he was still around the players because he liked to coach the players. They had him there as a captain at the tennis center in Queens, New York. And I have some very interesting stories that I was remembering. One of them was starting back in 1985. He was telling me that him and some of the other players that were there, they started off in this green building over there. They were going to move over to New Jersey, in Lakewood, New Jersey. This Lakewood, New Jersey is in the south, sort of like on the east side near the shore. And they sort of liked that area. They wanted to move their camp there. But I think what happened was they playing a lot of tennis over in some areas like Lakewood, Wayne, New Jersey, Chatham. They had the Chatham Tennis Center. And they were telling me a whole story of them planning to move. But what was the thing that really stopped them was they felt that when they were playing here in New Jersey, that they really weren't um, doing very good because of the strangest thing that they paranormal they thought was like pushing their racket, putting their arm. And whenever they played here, they seemed to have bad luck that they weren't winning games, and they felt it was because of the paranormal. And this was very interesting. I think when I was younger, I didn't really play in New Jersey. At that time, around 85, 86. Oh, excuse me, I think something went down for a minute. Okay. 85,
That's okay.
86. The he suggested me getting over to Wayne, New Jersey, going over to Chatham, but just by luck, Chatham was renovating the whole tennis center. And Wayne, they didn't have a contact name for me to get the games going because it wasn't a tennis center, it was just some outdoor courts. So the whole thing with heading over to New Jersey in 85, I didn't go over there, and it was a good thing because when they were telling me about this thing that when you're playing there, the paranormal can pull your arm, you can then lose games, and there's nothing you could do about it. So that was a really interesting thing. And they felt that on Long Island and New York City wasn't that bad. They didn't have a problem with it. And I think when I was playing, I sort of tried to keep aware of those things. I think playing here in New Jersey, I did get some idea of what they're talking about, but it was so many years later, it wasn't really that intense that it would cause me such a big problem. I think for them coming over here playing New Jersey and then they felt they had those kind of problems, sort of completely changed their future, made them stay over there at the tennis center. And I think they were sort of maybe lucky at that point because when I came along playing there, was on court 33, they decided to renovate everything, build everything brand new. So their facilities were much better for them. They made them much happier. And everything went good as far as that was concerned. I think one thing, I think at this times, I told some stories about Vitas where we played all the best players. He sent to me to play and selected one player, and then he selected one player. I think I think the interesting thing about that was when he selected his one player, it ended up that player ended up coming over to my tennis center for some lessons. So I think that player still needed my help too to play better. And then another thing which was very interesting was the some things you saw on TV. I think a lot of people saw Vitas on television going to Australia, and they had an interview once. I saw one with Ralph Kiner. He was giving an interview, simple interview, but the interview sort of stopped.
Oh,
Uh, I think one thing that no one knows about is that interview stopped, and then Vitas, whatever party Vitas was a part of there, they must have really double crossed him or something because he went there in the interview saying he won the Australian Open.
wow.
And then when it was stopped
What?
all of a sudden, he told me the story that he got arrested and he was in Australia and they told him
111.
he's not
Yep.
allowed to say he won the
Oh
tournament.
my
So there
gosh.
was a big dispute about that happened. Yes, a big dispute took place. I don't know who was wrong, who was right. That's just the basic story he told me, and it was I think that had to do with the same kind of thing of having good sponsors that they know 100% that you would have won the tournament, received a certificate, a trophy, and then if you have an interview, you know 100% you're not going to have a problem. So that sort of problem would sort of make you start to wonder what happened. Someone made up a story, they're trying to get away with something, or there was just a dispute. I have no idea, but that was a very interesting story of what happened. And I think as far as Vitas, another interesting thing about him, like with things like that, is that he used to also do acting on the side. He was like a stage actor. So he had the ability to do all kinds of things, talk to people, and had experience with acting. And I think that is another interesting thing. And when I was playing with that group, they were always promoting that the that I should take acting classes. I didn't take acting classes, but they suggested acting classes. And the reason why is because there was this thing about getting on television. So I think there's like two ways they thought about getting in. One is just playing, and then your matches were shown on TV, which mine they were shown on television. Then the other way was if you take some acting classes, they might give you like a credit, like you took the acting classes, and then they give you one or two shows on television of playing tennis. And that was one interesting aspect of trying to find like a loophole of how to advance your career, get some show on television. And I think that was one very interesting thing about a strategy of trying to get ahead with playing and people seeing you on TV playing and things like that was just to take a simple acting class. So that was an interesting idea. I think when I was playing, the importance of taking acting class, I didn't really feel was necessary. When I was interviewed, I didn't have any problem in the interview. I could talk to them very easily. So as far as I was concerned, I didn't really need any acting classes. So that was interesting. And I think uh, I think with Vitas, I just was very interested. I always think about was I think Vitas was living a little more simple. I think they were discussing Vitas one time, and I think he was just living a little more simple. He was doing his coaching job, wasn't that high paid, and I remember just a story where he was really living in a cottage that's adjacent to a house. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's a good place to live. It isn't homeless. I mean, obviously it isn't bad. I think it was a very nice neighborhood. And I think that was just one thing I always look at and just see the difference between what they're talking about and what I know on the court. And that's about it. And I think just this remembering over the few months and weeks, I just wanted to add some very interesting things. I was just remembering who was really the coach in that whole Olympic thing. And the guy's name was Bob Hansen. He was the Olympic organizer that selected all the players to play in that initial. a tennis event that took place. And that's the one where, of course, since I was honest and admitted I was a pro, I didn't play. But some of the other players did. They got into big trouble. And I had to remember what was going on in the past. And some of them were sentenced to 6 months as San Quentin prison, which was like maximum security prison. It was a big thing for them. And then I think just remembering back, my sponsors, they to get one of the players or more out of that situation, they made a deal with some of the people they sponsored, and one of them was myself, where they sat me out of 3 tournaments. I didn't know the difference because they told me what tournaments to play in anyway. But in fact, that decision ended up getting reviewed, and they had to go back on what they had said. So the player had to go back to a prison sentence, the remaining 3 months at another prison, and then they gave me 3 credits to play tournaments. And I probably received them. I really don't know because I wasn't keeping track of the tournaments. But that was really the serious things that were going on with my playing. I think that's a pretty big deal. I think for a while it was big on television. They showed a lot of it on the TV for a while, and I noticed now you can't really find too much information about it. But I remember at that time it was pretty big, and it took a number of years from like 1985. It took all the way maybe 5 years for that whole thing to really happen. It didn't happen right at a minute's time. It took a long time for that whole thing to happen and clear out with the whole thing with the players. And I remember even the players that had that problem, they were telling me that some of them were told that they're not allowed to even play professional sports in the USA because that event took place. My sponsor, who was helping some of those players over the years, was very upset, considering it's something that wasn't patriotic, and was very upset about the whole thing and just couldn't believe it. He was happy that I didn't have any problem with it and was really happy about that. So I think over the months I've been researching some things, and I found this very interesting story that came up in 2019. I saw that there was this story about Brandon Duran, and let me show you the share this. Let me share this here. Let's see how we share this.
Yeah, if you want to share the screen, no problem.
Yes.
Oops. Okay.
Let's share this.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think what happened here is, okay, can you see the screen?
Yep, I see it. Instant throttle, insane throttle. I just can't read.
Okay, what's
Yes.
happening here is this is an interesting
Oh, wow.
story. What's happening here is this is a sport player who played snowboarding. And I think some things on this page with the motorcycles and everything isn't really the main story. The main story was really about him playing pro snowboarding. And unfortunately, the unfortunate events that took place in this TV show seem to have ended up showing some interesting things about professional sport playing. One of them is that his father sponsored the son and helped him out with the career, like a sponsor and a coach, sort of like my pro shop with Patrick Mulrooney. And this guy, they went over to some areas to do the snowboarding, and he was doing very good. And I think the one interesting thing about sports that was concerned is that they said the same thing, that he had large companies giving him financial backing, like sponsors, like big companies sponsoring. And what happened is, unfortunately, the father seems to have passed away during his career playing snowboarding, and then his career completely stopped. And that is so typical of some things I was explaining, that if the sponsors stop, they're not there anymore. No one can really help. It's very difficult. The whole career seemed to have stopped. And that is one interesting thing. And I think some other interesting things about the story was some people around him. I think they show the girlfriend, they show the family, and they show the friends of this here, Brandon Duran. And I think the set of characters are very similar to a lot of sport players. I could identify with a lot of these type of things. I see some of the words they say in the TV movie is amazingly the same as a lot of people in sports. They use the same kind of words. which was very interesting. I think this show came on because it was an unfortunate end with his personal life and his marriage and everything, but that has nothing to do with the interesting points about the sports. And I think that was really very interesting. I think some things that happened there was really that when I was younger, I think there was some interesting things that were similar. Let me just stop the share on this. Let me switch to the other share on here because the other share is the one with.
And I apologize, I just sneezed twice.
Okay, yes, is this one here? Okay, this here is okay. So now this is the YouTube. This is showing the shows on American Monster, season 6, episode 9. And it just says the basic names here with tattoo artists and motorcycles. And I think the only thing really as far as around me were similar was I remember my father always used to talk about how he used to have his new Harley Davidson when he was young. He used to ride it around Manhattan and Brooklyn before he was like 21 years old. And then I think another thing here was interesting thing about the story with some tattoos. I think the thing with the tattoos in this particular story is very big, very clear. But I think the strangest thing is I remember years ago, like in my 20s, they once found someone's dead body had tattoos on it, and they were wondering if I had tattoos. And I was wondering, so how can I have tattoos and someone who's not alive had tattoos and it was the same person? So I don't know what was happening with that. And that was really a strange thing. And so that is one interesting story.
One of a million that you have with this life. Amazing.
So I think that is one interesting thing. And so then so I think that movie was really
Yeah.
unbelievable. It's a little bit gory.
Yeah.
It's pretty strange. I think there was a strange story when I was very young. We once at the beach, and my family and me, we were walking near the end over on the North Shore of Long Island.
Uh-huh.
And in fact, there was someone who was dismembered like that. And there's the same kind of thing with the plastic pails and things like that. And my father walked over to the policeman in the parking lot, told them, and then when we were there, just on the beach, all the police cars and police trucks came over and really took a look at the crime scene. It was really interesting. So that was an interesting thing that happened over the years. And so I think as far as those are concerned, it's very interesting. And I think one thing with this was also there was a female involved there in his career. And I think some of those things remind me of the years with my girlfriend Delilah. I think I had talked with Steve in detail about Delilah with the sport career and everything. I don't know if I talked about it recently, but in fact,
No.
there was very interesting things happening there. In fact, I remember once we were playing at the Old Westbury, and the Perot had the whole facility, and we were playing there, and it was under very tight security. So what happened was my girlfriend Delilah, who was really in on my tennis career, she really liked it. Her father really liked it. They really had this thing where I was getting married to her. And we even took a picture together that we're getting married. And one day when I was playing my um, matches there at Old Westbury, she visited over there. She had already come there a few times. And I think one time she was warned by the security, but I think she went there again anyway, trying to go around one of the parking lots or something like that. And when she was there, unfortunately, security, they had to arrest her. And she was given a summons. So she had to really go to the court. And the court was very nice that they were really concerned that my girlfriend wasn't trying to commit a fraud on me. You know, she wasn't trying to ruin my career, wasn't doing something secretly like that, which was very nice that they were on to some type of complex situation going on with Delilah and the father and me. And so she had to end up going to court with the father and had to show the photographs that we were together and that they were really planning a marriage with me. And I think a lot of that was interesting. Delilah, I think I told Steve about some things, but I think Delilah, I didn't give you all the background. She was originally like a beauty queen where I lived. She was very nice looking, and she was also very a good ice skater. She used to ice skate with Dorothy Hamill because in West
Wow.
Ferry, Long Island, they have
Yeah.
Dorothy Hamill was there with the different shows that she makes with the Ice Capades,
Yeah.
and Delilah was involved with Ice Capades, and she was also trying to get in on a modeling career. She once had um, some pictures made, and they put them in like the local advertisements for clothing and things like that. And so I think me and her over the years, I knew her for many years. She was always this thing that she wanted to get ahead. She also had some other types of things going on with beauty things and things like that, with movies. And she really wanted to get ahead with that. But she also liked the idea of my tennis playing because her father was an ITF tennis player when he was
Oh,
young.
wow.
He was playing some pro tennis. And so the father really liked that idea. But I think the only thing that happened in this story was unfortunately Delilah and her father and her family seemed to have occurred serious problems. Some of them, just to say real quick, was one of them was the mother fell ill and she passed away. And then they had a sort of a strange sort of family going on there that the father had a gay relationship with this other guy and wanted to put together this marriage between them anyway. And this
Wow.
whole thing went nuts. And unfortunately, Delilah, at the end of this story, she ended up passing away too. And the father ended up running to
Ah,
Florida. And from what I was told, they ended up finding him dead too. So this story with her didn't end up too good.
ah,
I was always hoping that maybe she passed on, that maybe she is living, the rest of her life someplace. But unfortunately, that story did go wild. And so I think the point when she was there at my tennis matches,
wow.
watching the games, jumping up and down, and we have some video of her. I don't have copies of them, but there's video of her jumping up and down, rooting for
Ah,
me there. And she was allowed to come to the court side one time, and so that's happy also. And so that was very interesting what was going on with her. And I think that whole thing culminated in the year 1996, just at the beginning of 1996. That whole story ended up with Delilah. And so
what was her last name? Do you mind telling me? I want to Google her.
Jew, Delilah Jewel,
Jewel, like in the like a Jewel,
J I
Jewel.
J I U. It was really like yeah, I think her heritage, her father was really born in China.
Okay.
And
Wow.
she yeah, I think at those times the my sponsors and I used to talk to the sponsors in Japan. They all like these stories about Delilah too, and so they were even encouraging a future with me and Delilah, staying together.
Oh
And I
my
think that wasn't
goodness.
too bad. I think considering what was going on with the pictures of the marriage and everything like that. But I think there were really serious, unfortunate things that took place because the father really started to go like he became someone else or got worse and worse. I don't know what his problem was. And it ended up in some kind of a horrible ending there. So, in fact, I ended up going to her house after this whole thing cleared out, and ended up talking to the neighbor. And the neighbor, she was a nice older lady that was living in the house next door, and she was always very upset. And she told me the story that they left the house. It looks like someone had died at the time, and that is what happened there. So that was a really horrible story, and there was a lot of different things going on there also with the law enforcement, and
Ah,
we had all kinds of things going on, trying to help the situation out, but wasn't able to really solve all the problems, and looks like things really went out of control. I think things went out of control right after I went to Hawaii, and I made a showing there as Carlos Scipio in Hawaii, signing autographs at the hotel, and I have some pictures. Let me just go on here to the Facebook page. Let me just get this prepared first before
no problem. Yeah, it says we're running out of time on the Zoom, so we have to move fast.
okay.
Carlos, I love it. I love your alias.
Okay. So if you can see here, this is the picture here of a musical group with
Oh
Gwen
yeah.
Stefani. So the Mitsubishi managers were nice enough to bring Gwen Stefani and her singers there to the hotel in Hawaii.
Oh my.
And I talked to Miss Gwen Stefani, and she was very nice. And there I was signing autographs in the lobby. And this is the picture of the hotel. This is a large, nice hotel.
Wait,
I
did you
put
date
I
Gwen
put a
too? Is
lot of
that
this
part of the
together.
story?
Well, I put a lot of this thing together myself, and it worked out pretty good because my travel agent gave me a really nice place to put this whole thing together. And I think the picture you see here of them, this is in the hotel lobby.
Oh my gosh.
So that is pretty good. And this is just some pictures, standard photograph pictures they have on record for the hotel. These I didn't
Okay.
take myself. I do have some pictures someplace when I was there. I took a few pictures, and this is just some pictures of that whole thing. And this is when
Awesome.
I was there, and so I did the appearance there. And then right after this point, I went back home, and I think the this was really at the end of when the whole thing happened with my girlfriend Delilah and her father. Something horrible happened. And in fact, at that time when I was talking to Delilah and telling about the trip and the Queen Stefani showed up, a lot of people around Delilah, her friends there, they were so impressed that I was starting to get into something like this that they were really amazed with it. And I think
Aw.
at that point is when that took place. And that was right at the start of 1996. So that's what happened. And let me stop the share on this.
Aw. Wow, what a story. I gotta find her. I tried Googling, I can't find Delilah, but I don't know if there's anything on her out there on the internet. Is there? Am I just spelling her name wrong?
There isn't anything about her.
Oh,
I
okay.
looked already to see if there's any public photos. One interesting thing is that she is pictured in some background photos with Dorothy Hamill and Ice Capades, but she's usually like in a Smurf costume at that time. She went to Chicago, did the Chicago show with Dorothy Hamill, and she's in the Smurf costumes. So that's about it for her. I can't really get any official pictures of her. I would take more research, I think,
Mm,
but that is really the story of what was happening there.
well,
And
beautiful.
so I
Well,
think
we
after
are.
the light, of course, I went on and I met some other entertainment females, and they know about my tennis career and everything. And but it's too bad that that happened with the light that did pass on. And so that was really a sad story that what happened. So that's why I think talking about that story with Brandon Duran was bringing back a lot of memories of the whole thing in
Yep.
sports that I think is pretty standard. And I think there's also all kinds of things in sports that is
Yep.
typical of a lot of people. I was told also about things with money and things like that. That's another story. I think this story on television, they didn't have anything talking about money or anything. It was just a bunch of personalities around the player and things like that. And so I think that is very interesting. That's an interesting show to watch and get an idea of the different personalities around sports.
American Monster
I
was
think
right.
yes, and I think the basic thing about like things like sponsors, someone
Ah,
helping with the sports and things like that is a very interesting story, and that brought back a lot of memories and sort of can get this idea of sort of like the same kind of things
ah,
going on in sports. I think a lot of sport players, and when I was talking to my sponsors and things like that, they always gave me an idea of the certain trends that are always taking place. And those
yeah.
are some of the different trends that are taking place. I think some trends that were taking place was even like when you're home with your neighborhood friends, maybe having a barbecue. All of a sudden, I was told a lot of times someone might come over, try to shoot people down.
Harm you. I mean,
There's
yeah, you got to
all
be
kinds of
careful.
dangerous things going on. I mean, that is
Wow. Well,
one
John, I
interesting
hate to
thing.
cut you short, but we are going to get disconnected momentarily. John Riggio, how do we contact you?
Yes, you can go onto my webpage, uh, is johnriggio.com, or you can go onto my Facebook page, which is John Riggio Pro Tennis Player. And you can go there. I have my links, my photographs I'm showing today. It
Beautiful.
has copies of all of the videos we're doing here. So you get a lot of different stories. The videos have all that inside information. I really didn't put all the written information about the stories I have, personal things. You'd have to watch the videos to get all those different things. So the things I have written in the list are just the basic factual things that took place over the years, and the videos have all the interesting stories if you want to watch them.
All right, John Riggio, JohnRiggio, just in case. Bye. Thank you so much. Pleasure to have
Sure.
you back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.